All right, so we will start with Microsoft SQL Server. So first, what is SQL Server? What is an SQL Server? Well, I think the other day we actually discussed different types of databases, the relational database, and I said we will actually focus more on the relational database. So SQL Server is a relational database management system. It is developed by Microsoft and is designed to manage and store information, and it just basically just supports a wide variety of transactional processing, business intelligence, analytics applications, and in corporate IT environment. Um, so what's the key features of SQL Server? Inside, you'll find the database engine. So at its core, SQL Server provides a database engine that allows for storing. So it allows storing, retrieving, and managing data in the database. And then this engine, it supports both relational data and from newer version, there's also JSON. We'll talk a little bit later. We'll talk later about JSON and XML data formats. We will discuss different data formats there. And then it does, most importantly, it supports SQL, which is a structured query language. So it uses SQL as a standard programming language to manage and manipulate databases. Users can perform different operations like querying data, updating records, inserting data, and creating database objects like tables, views, and stored procedures, which we will actually discuss a little bit further later on. It has transactional management. So it supports transactions which are sequences. If you remember what I said yesterday, I say a transaction is a sequence of operations that is performed as a single unit of work, ensuring that there's data integrity and there's consistency, even in the case of system failures or concurrent as access. It does have security features as well. It includes security features like authentication, authorization, encryption, and it's important to actually encrypt data because it's sensitive information like maybe your ID numbers or your bank cards or anything like that. So it has to be encrypted. So we will actually go through that as well, how we actually encrypt data in SQL. Um, Data masking as well, just to protect data and ensure that only authorized users can access or modify it. Data analysis and business intelligence. So there's a comprehensive tools for data analysis, reporting, business intelligence. So this actually includes SQL Server integration services for data integration, SQL Server analysis for data analysis, and SQL Server reporting services for creating and managing reports as well. Cloud integration, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of things are moving to the cloud now. A lot of companies, they sort of moving away from on-premise infrastructure to the cloud infrastructure. So you can integrate your on-premise SQL Server um, with the cloud using maybe Azure SQL database or Azure SQL managed instance, or you can even do hybrid, environment. So there's that flexibility in deployment and management as well. Another thing is high availability and disaster recovery. So one thing that is a disadvantage, I suppose, in a database, you delete something by mistake in a database, it's gone forever. There is no restore. So there is no restore. So it's important to have a disaster recovery plan somewhere, because then you'll have features like always on availability groups, data mirroring, um, log shipping, just to ensure that the database remains available and the data is not lost in the case of hardware failures or disasters, because you'll never know what will happen to the hardware. There's scalability as well. So you can scale to support large databases and high transactions volumes, making it suitable for both small and large application. There's developer tools that includes tools and APIs for developers. We'll talk about that later on, like SQL Server Management Studio. So that's the one actually that have opened up. It's called Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. It will help us to actually um, use SQL Server, which is actually running in the background in your computer right now. Um, so that is for, we use it for a database management, and there is also Visual Studio integration. So, I mean, SQL Server has evolved through many versions with improvement in performance as well, security, and just features to meet modern data management analysis needs. Now let's talk about the architecture. How is it actually built? Um, I mentioned a database engine. So SQL Server architecture is complex and it's designed to support high performance, and it's reliable and scalability for processing and managing large volumes of data, right? So it consists of different components that actually work together to handle different aspects of database management and operations. Now, the first one is database engine. I think I mentioned that. So those are the core services. So that is at the heart of your SQL server. You find the database engine which processes SQL queries. Any query that you run there um, is being processed in a database engine. Transactions, operations, just ensuring data integrity as well, and security and concurrency as well. So it handles the storage, it handles the retrieval, the manipulation of data. Then in the database engine, we have the storage engine as well that actually manages how the data is actually stored and how it's retrieved from the disk. So this includes the organization the organization data of data files, the pages, the extents, indexes. Again, those things we'll talk about them later on. And there's buffer management system that just keeps frequently accessed data in the memory just to improve performance. So it's more like caching, right? There's a query processor. That executes SQL queries. It includes a query optimizer, which determines the most efficient execution plan for queries. Um, then we have the SQL Server Relational Database Engine. Under the SQL Database Relational Engine, we have SQL Operating System. Okay, so that is a layer between the SQL Server relational engine and the operating system. So it handles resource management. So I'm talking about thread scheduling, right? The threads in your CPU, right? And the memory management. Just making sure, ensuring that SQL Server efficiently uses system resources as well. There is a transitional manager that manages transactions to ensure that there's data consistency, and it supports features like log management, logging, and recovery to handle system failures. There's buffer manager that's responsible for caching data pages in memory, like what we call buffer pool, just to minimize the disk input output operations. So that will, it actually improves the query performance as well. All right. Then we have the the protocol layer, SQL Server protocol layer. So under there, we found the tabular data stream, which is a protocol that's just used by SQL Server for communication between clients and the server, and it encapsulates the database operations requested by the clients. Then we have the network layer, of course, that handles communications over networks, allowing clients to connect to SQL Server instances using different network protocols. So that's more of a development side. Let's say you've got an application that wants to connect to an SQL Server there. Um, and then there's SQL Server storage layer. Uh, we have data files there. These are physical files where data is stored, and then a database can have multiple data files that is in across different storage types. And then we have log files in there that is used for logging transactions to support database recovery as well. Um, there's file groups that just allows the organization of data files into logical groups that just helps in data management and potentially improving uh, performance as well. And then there's additional components that we've already talked about: integration services for data integration and workflow applications, analysis services that will provide online analytical processing and data mining capabilities. For the other day, we talked about data mining for business intelligence applications, and there's reporting services. We talked about that as well. So basically, in a nutshell, this architecture just enables SQL Server to handle different workloads, from online processing and applications with high transaction volumes, and to complex data queries, analysis, and reporting solutions. So each component is designed to ensure that SQL Server provides a secure, reliable, and efficient data management. Now, to install SQL Server, you can actually go to or to download your own version, maybe in your own computer. Um, I've already downloaded it, but you can go to Microsoft and then /SQL Server downloads. So you'll see here we've got 3 instances of SQL. So we have so the SQL Server downloads page on Microsoft websites. It actually lists 3 main options for SQL Server deployment. We've got SQL Server on Azure, and then we have SQL Server at Edge, and then we've got SQL Server on premise. So each option is designed for specific use cases. For example, we get SQL Server on Azure for running SQL on Azure SQL, offering built-in security and manageability as well. And then you've got SQL Server at Edge. It extends SQL Server to IoT, or Internet of Things, devices for real-time analysis with Azure SQL Edge, and suitable for edge computing scenarios. And then we've got SQL on premise. It offers offers a performance and security of SQL Server 2022 as scalable and hybrid data platforms. And now on Azure, enabled for transitional on-premise environments as well. So additionally, there is free available edition that are available for download. So that's what you're going to download in your own computer at home. There's a developer edition for development and test databases in non-production environment, like maybe if you just for testing, right? And then there's express edition. It's ideal for development production for desktop. So that's the one I've actually downloaded, the express edition. So this is for web and small server application. So you can go ahead and download. So after downloading, then we have also some tools. Okay, so you can install SQL Server in Windows, so you can run it on Windows or your virtual machine or on Azure, or you can run it on Linux. If you've got Linux, you can run it on a Docker image, or I and then there's other tools that you can actually download. The tools that we talked about, there's Azure Data Studio, and then SQL Management Studio. So that's the one that you actually need. This is the one that we've opened up right now for SQL, just to connect to SQL. There's also like the data tools that you can download. Is data migration assistant that can help you to migrate data maybe from on-premise to Azure. Or there's also migration assistant for Oracle to Oracle databases as well. Now you will need to download SQL Server Management Studio. So that is just an integrated environment for managing SQL, any SQL infrastructure from SQL Server to Azure. So I can actually connect to Azure SQL as well from my management studio. Right. So when we actually open it and then we click on connect, I can decide to connect to my local server, or I can actually, if I've got any other SQL like my management, the one that is running on Azure, then I can actually download, or I can put the address there, or I can browse for more if I've got any others as well. All right.